Alrighty, guys, we are live today with a couple of really fun faces. Not that it's not always fun, but we've got Bear here from Bear Independent. Scully's in the house. And John Willis, I'm Nicole Sauce. We're going to talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about today. Let's start with the question all of us asked Bear immediately. Hey, how are things going in Oklahoma, Bear?
Oh, they're so super duper, Nicole. Thanks for asking. Multiple thumbs up. So we're in Idabel, Oklahoma, which got hit by an EF4 tornado, and really just messed a bunch of stuff up. And the I'd put the residential damage at somewhere between 50 and $100 million. And the county, bless their little hearts, they're trying so hard to affect the recovery, and it's operating at a snail's pace. And so we're out here doing what we do, trying to find the people who were hit the hardest, who had the least before the storm, and do whatever we can to get them back on their feet again. So if you hear chainsaws and heavy equipment in the background, it's because I'm out here live action role playing, and we wanted to make sure that the green screen was super on point today. So yeah, you can thank the audio visual team for all of that.
All right. Well, it's always great when people take responsibility for disasters and just get out there and start doing stuff. But I know it can be hard when you get on site with all of the things that you encounter on site. So thanks for doing that, Bear.
Oh, you're welcome. We got here 2 hours after the tornado lifted off the ground. We've been here. Today's day 13. We've done search and rescue, medical calls, commo, traffic control, strike teams, hot meals, construction and demolition debris. We're replacing a house for a single mom with 2 kids and 2 jobs, who her house got picked up and thrown 12 foot off the foundation, then broken in half. Her daughter, 9-year-old daughter, was almost sucked through the hole in the roof that the storm made. The fridge is gone, washer and dryer is gone, and as the kid was being pulled off of the bed by the storm, cried out to God for a favor and got dropped back on the bed. So our running joke around here is our name is Favor on this deployment. So, we just, no big deal. Just doing what we do.
Tornadoes are a big deal. What'd you say, John?
How far is that from your place, man?
I'm about 2.5 hours from home. And
Okay.
which is interesting because usually when we go on a disaster deployment, we're like several states away. But I'm a few counties away from my house right now. In fact, the same storms that hit here were like right over the top of our house. And so not this past Friday night, but the Friday night before, me and my family were huddled in the hallway of my house, watching the radar, listening to the local ham repeater. And once the storms passed, like 4 minutes after the storms passed, me and my guys were grabbing shit and throwing it in pickup trucks and headed this way. So,
Yep.
Hey,
So,
Bear. Hey, just because I don't know, and you may have already answered this, you keep saying we. How many people are in your group?
So we showed up on site with 17 people. We've got anywhere on a daily basis between 20 and 30. And it's worth illustrating that these people right now, we have on site people from California, Miami, Florida, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado, Ohio, Michigan, and I can't remember where else from. And Grindstone as an organization is affiliated, has relationships with about 200 agencies, individuals, and organizations across the country. And so when something like this comes out, the initial deployment usually looks like a signal chat or a text message, hey, we're up, let's go. And then immediately we put an email blast out after that to give people a rough outline of what we're doing and where we're doing it and what to bring. And then people start coming in after that. And we are 100% dependent upon volunteer labor. Like, I'm not out here earning a paycheck. We don't, people out of the kindness of their heart, the conviction of their heart, come out here to do the right thing, which is help people recover from these storms. And we always look for people who were barely getting by before the storm, because it sucks to have your house destroyed, But if it's your third house and you've got 14 million in the bank liquid and, you know, your 401k is fully funded, you're going to be okay. If you were barely getting by before the storm, like the choice was, do I pay rent or buy groceries and then your house is destroyed? You're our kind of people. That's usually where we end up deploying most of our resources to.
Those are also the people where FEMA will pull some silly shit and be like, hey, here's $2,000. Now you're off your property.
Yeah. Well, and can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. FEMA's not even out here
yet.
Like
they will be.
No, they were out here for 12 hours. They sent one guy for 12 hours. They drove around, looked around, and basically said, this does not rise to the level of a federal emergency. We're out. And they left. So, and then the governor of Oklahoma, who I met like on site 11 days ago, they have declared disaster in 4 counties in southeastern Oklahoma. But so the funds have been allocated for disaster relief, but they've not been dispersed because, well, I'm really bad at sugarcoating shit. Depending on who you ask, I'm either in the state of Oklahoma or I'm on the reservation right now.
Oh, shit.
So, yeah. It's gotten interesting.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw you got to hang out with the governor for a second, though.
Yeah, it was cool. I sent J.A. Dudley, my brother Dudley, over there. I was like, go duddle that guy. And so Dudley went over there, and he's like 280 pounds, 26 professional MMA heavyweight fights, you know. He's retired 5 fighters. So he just goes over there and starts knife-handing the governor. And once the governor looked sufficiently unsettled, then I walked over with this chainsaw on my shoulder. I was like, hey, Gov, we should talk. And so it was a good meeting. It was fun.
That's cool. How does this
Yeah.
How does this area look compared to Kentucky last time?
Really good question. So Kentucky was a federal disaster. I think the storm track for that storm was about 170 miles long. The key difference between Mayfield, Kentucky and Idabel, Oklahoma is that a lot of what got hit in Mayfield, Kentucky were downtown areas, incorporated areas, and high population density areas. There was still a lot of damage out in the county as well, but a lot of what got hit was, you know, literally downtown Mayfield got destroyed by the tornado. Versus here, there were some, you know, like developments, housing developments that got hit, but a lot of the damage is out in the county. And typically speaking, when a government response is spun up for storm relief, it's always centered first and foremost in the populated areas, the incorporated areas, because that's where the most people are. So that's where they go. And so the debris and the destruction out here is comparable to Mayfield, but it's more so out in the county, out in the country than it is downtown. There's probably 200 houses downtown that are destroyed of the maybe 1,000 that we're aware of. Versus Mayfield, man, there were tens of thousands of buildings that got smashed in that series of storms, and probably 80% of them were incorporated downtown areas.
Okay, we got one. We got one from online. Is that Scully or just a cardboard cutout?
Cardboard cutout.
That is Tom Araya, the lead singer of Slayer. I don't know what you're talking about.
I wish I had $1 for every time somebody said that.
I got the Oak Ridge Boys the other day.
All right, Scully, what trouble are you getting into today with John?
We already did it like an hour ago. He was telling me about his fire hose escapades with the
oh, they don't know. Yeah, septic
tank.
Septic. Grease doesn't go in a septic system very well.
No.
Yes.
And we make lots of grease. Yeah. So if you ever use a 3-inch trash pump and they tell you you need the rigid hose to go into the septic, but you can use the flat hose on the other side because it is longer, you need to know that you cannot control the floppy side. And when the metal thing starts flopping around, it will literally knock your head off your body. And while it's flopping around and you're trying to control it while it's shooting literally shit, skip that. Just get the rigid hose for both sides.
Ask me how I know. That's a good ask me how I know.
Yes. Imagine my surprise.
So John's had
That
like 9
sounds
showers
horrendous.
today.
Yeah, the worst is the under the counter grease trap. When you get that on you, it takes about 48 hours for you to no longer smell it. And we have it installed in a manner that you have to get it on you. That's the only way to clean it out.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So the next capital improvement project at your place is a grease trap outside, right?
Man, you know what has to happen is we literally have to cut the concrete slab in the kitchen to the outside and actually do it correctly. We just need a commercial actual grease trap that a grease truck comes and pumps out is what needs to happen.
Here's a question for Bear. How well were the residents prepared for the tornadic world that they experienced?
They were as prepared as everybody else was. And this is the 36th storm that we've worked, which is to say completely unprepared or woefully underprepared like everybody else. So many people are just like, and rightfully so, they're shell shocked. You know, we were finding people 3 days after the storm had hit. We, but it was me and my 15-year-old daughter cut an elderly couple out of their house because the front of their house was gone and they had probably 2 or 3 dozen big pine trees. Big pine trees, like in their front yard, just laid like pickup sticks across the front yard. It was not possible to get out of the house. And the reason the front of the house was gone was because one of those trees had been shot into the front of the house, and the top of the
Oh,
man, I don't know
Just
how
right-
you can
go into the house. What?
Oh,
Go
you
ahead.
cut out for this. So you just talked about the trees set up like pickup sticks, and then it cut out. So that's about where we were just like waiting for the punchline.
Oh yeah. So the trees, one of these trees went through the house into this bedroom next to where this guy's wife was sleeping. And so we go in there and it's like, hey, buddy, you can't be in here. And he's like, well, we know, but we can't get out of the house. Okay. So we cut him out of the house, but his wife was still asleep in the bedroom next door to the bedroom that the pine tree had demolished.
Yeah.
And so there's this weird dichotomy where people are still trying to hold on to some semblance of normalcy. It's like, your house is condemned. You have to go. You need to leave. You can't stay here. And that's kind of tough when you have to have that conversation with people. And, you know, a couple days ago, beautiful couple, ranching couple, you know, generational ranch that they live on, got several hundred head of cattle. Their house was condemned, destroyed, and I took a 67,000-pound link belt track hoe and smashed it into a pile so we could truck it off site. That shit sucks. I don't want to smash their house into a pile, but they can't live in it either, you know? But as far as like general preparedness, I don't know if preppers are maybe even 1% of the population. And if they are, we very rarely run into them when we're doing storm.
How do you prepare for a tornado?
Usually because they're probably prepped and they don't need us. But
Yeah, that's a good question,
What's
John.
that?
How do you even prepare for a tornado if it's going to wipe all your shit out anyway?
So first thing I would say is like, have a storm shelter. If you live in an area where there's tornadic activity, have a storm shelter, because your stuff is stuff.
Yeah.
It would suck, but you can replace stuff. I can get more chainsaws and guns and knives and buckets full of rice. I can, you know, not a thing. People, though, are literally irreplaceable. And so I would have a storm shelter, and I would stock that storm shelter with the stuff you need to ride out a storm. I mean, you put a couple days worth of stuff in a storm shelter, you're good to go. So I would definitely do that. And then you see different types of buildings that survive and different types of buildings that don't. Trailer houses, mobile homes, they don't make it through storms. And so, and stick framed houses, when they get hit by trees, whether the tree fell over onto the house or the storm picked it up and threw a tree into it, they just kind of explode. They come apart like, Legos, man. They just bust apart. And so, but like block homes are fine, generally speaking. Might lose the roof or part of the roof, but the structure itself is okay. So having the right kind of house, if you live in Tornado Alley, matters a lot as well. And then, don't have all your eggs in one basket. Like having caches elsewhere, or having some of your stuff stored at a buddy's house or your mutual assistance group or whatever. It's a good idea as well. But I would definitely start with having a storm shelter, because all the sexy prepper shit you have doesn't matter at all if your daughter's impaled by a pine tree, So basic stuff. I'd do that first.
Good to know.
I think it's a misunderstanding of the level or the type of destruction. Like, people just don't understand. When you say a pine tree going through somebody's house, I think people just don't understand how dangerous Mother Nature really is. When we had our storm here, in Waverly, it was just 3 feet of water that wiped out 200 homes.
Oh yeah. Let's see if I can. This place we're at today is not that bad, and the roof up here is completely gone. It just picked the roof up and stripped it off. It ripped the door off of the house, and there's a tree back here. Let me see if I can get to it. This one tree is a 5-foot diameter oak, and it's not the biggest tree that we've cut out here. That's all I've really been doing, is running big chainsaws the whole time we've been here. And so, stone exterior, if that was stick built, without the stone exterior, it probably wouldn't be here. Give me like 1 minute. I got to walk 50 yards. Hopefully I don't lose you.
Yeah.
But this tree out here, if this tree fell on your house, you'd be dead. So that's something else people can look at. Like, if you live in a tornado area, clear the big trees away from your house. But my power bill is going to go up in the summer because I won't have the shade from the trees. Well, you won't have a house when the tree falls on it. So here we go. Almost there. I feel like Dora the Explorer right now. We're on an adventure, guys. All right. So there's the stump of this tree.
Wow, that's huge.
There's the log of that tree. Okay, so I'm 6 foot tall. That's at least a 4.5 foot diameter oak tree. And that spar right there is 30 foot long.
Are you guys using all your electric chainsaws out there?
Yeah, that we're only charging by having our unicorns run on the magical treadmills. So we're trying to be very low impact to the environment out here. Definitely not running the biggest chainsaws that steel makes on lots of gasoline. I would never
Isaac
do
wants
that.
to know how you're going to get that on the truck.
So we have a 67,000 pound link belt track hoe with a thumb, and track hoes can, generally speaking, lift their own weight. And so at safety rating, you can half that. So it'll lift 33,000 pounds, 16 tons. So I'll be able to pick that up and get it on the truck. That's part of what we're trying to do out here for these people is arrange trucking for all the saw logs that are out here, because there's a lot of value in the timber. It's unfortunate that the trees came down, but there's a lot of value in the timber. And most of these people are uninsured or underinsured. In fact, there may be, little insider baseball, there may be some class action lawsuits that come out of this because the insurance companies, one in particular in this area, would not allow their customers to insure their properties for the full replacement value of the homes. And so they're now, storm hits, house is wrecked, can't replace the house because you don't have enough insurance to cover the replacement cost of the house because the insurance company wouldn't let you buy that much insurance. So
just another way to eminent domain them.
Well,
yeah, well, hopefully that shit don't happen.
But then what happens is they build houses that are inferior to storms, and then they just get wiped out again.
Yeah.
So I have a question about sawing logs.
Uh-huh.
When a tornado takes the tree and twists it, and you need to cut it out, how do you do that without that whipping back and hurting somebody? Like, how do you approach that situation? It's the thing I always wonder when I see the trees all wound around each other tight.
Very carefully. I've been cutting timber since I was 15 years old. And that was my first business, was cutting timber. Started it when I was 17. And I still run into situations out here with storm trees where you almost don't even know where to begin, because it's all about tension and compression. Some of the wood, let's see, I need a teaching model. Stand by.
Rope works really well.
You just use that big skid steer to hold it.
Man, my first tornado I saw was in Nashville,
Excellent.
and we were walking around, and I see a car with a stop sign stuck in the back of the driver's seat. The driver's standing up, and he just goes, "I ducked," and that's the only reason he didn't get decapitated.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen trees out here where like 2x4s from houses are blown into the tree. They're sticking into the tree. Like didn't shatter to nothing. They're just embedded a foot or two into a living tree. About 153 mile an hour winds out here. But tension and compression, right? So here's your limb that you're going to cut, right? The bottom of the limb, say it's leaning like this, it's got all this weight on the end. The bottom is under compression because the end wants to push it down. So this is closing up. The top is under tension. It wants to open up. And so generally speaking, you always want to take the compression wood out first before cutting the tension wood. Well, it's challenging to read when you've got trees stacked on top of one another and they've all been blown into piles. Where's the tension? Where's the compression? And if you do that wrong, it could seriously injure you. And it's just difficult. So having heavy equipment's really important, like you were saying. Having the big track hose and the skid steers and all of that helps a lot, but it's still not a cure-all. When we were in Kentucky, we went on a med call. There was a guy with a different ministry who was out there who cut a tree wrong, and the tree popped back and just shattered his leg, broke his leg. And then after the tree popped back and shattered his leg, it fell down on top of him. So we had to get that guy out, splint his leg, get him moved up to an ambulance, and get him sent on his way to the hospital. So it's frustrating sometimes because we do get a lot of people who want to help. They want to come out here and be the hands and feet and run a saw and be on a saw crew. And that's great. And honestly, we need those people. But we also need really experienced saw hands. Because again, I've been doing this 25 years. And I still get into a jam occasionally just because of the nature of the work. And so if you've, cut a little bit of firewood, you need more experience than that to cut some of these trees or you're going to injure yourself. So.
Can you sort of tell if you're cutting in the wrong place, that you're starting to cut in the wrong place by how the wood acts because you've done it so much?
Yep.
And then you're like, oop, back away.
Yeah, you should always be paying attention to the cuts that you're making. Always. That your entire focus is on the cut that you're making, because it very rarely goes wrong instantly. It goes wrong because you're not paying attention and you kept making cuts that you shouldn't have been making. And so, just you watch your cut, the kerf, which is the area that the chainsaw removes. You want to watch your kerf and see what it's doing. If it's closing up while you're cutting, you've got that wood is under compression. That's bad news. You want to stop making that cut, move to the other side, or figure out, add a machine to it to take up the weight of that piece or whatever. But you should always be paying attention to that. So, because at the very least, you might smash a $1,500 chainsaw. Well, that sucks, right? But at the worst, you might kill somebody, maybe yourself, if you do it wrong. So,
did you guys run into injuries rolling on scene?
Only minor stuff. Had one guy got cut by a piece of sheet metal right across his neck, and it was like a couple of millimeters from his jugular vein. So that was cool. He got some combat gauze stuffed in the slit and got it wrapped up, sent him to the hospital. And then we had one guy that was exhibiting signs of a heart attack. So we triaged him and then got him sent to the hospital. But other than that, just minor stuff, like kind of like sports medicine injuries almost, a twist, a sprain, a bruise, a scrape, stuff like that. But, thankfully, nothing bad. There was one fatality here from the storm.
That's not bad. One that big of a storm.
Yep.
How big's that link belt you guys have out there?
67,000 pound.
Is that like a 320 or a 220 or 175?
So like a 320, a Cat 320. The 3 denotes that it's an excavator, and the 20 denotes the tonnage on the machine.
Okay.
So a 320 is a 40,000 pound machine, roughly speaking, right?
Okay.
So this is more the equivalent of like a 335.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. And I would have gotten a bigger hoe if I could, but the trucking is where it starts getting challenging.
Yeah.
It literally barely fit on a 50-ton lowboy. There were more tracks hanging off than there were sitting on the trailer. So,
Jay Dudley there.
that's my guy right there. Get duddled. Like, you need somebody spoken to, you send Dudley and he'll get it handled. So
it's always good to have somebody like that around.
Hey, when's the next Self-Reliance Festival?
It's March, I think it's 24th and 25th.
Right.
It might be 25th, 26th. We're actually doing one of your trainings the Friday before.
Yeah.
So we're going to do, maybe 2 if we can sell enough tickets. Absolutely. We were hoping you'd stay an extra day or 2 and speak.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be there. I talked to my wife about that, and we're thinking we're going to do what we did the first time we came out. We'll get a little cabin or an Airbnb or something, come out and hang out for a few days, come to the event, do all that stuff. I don't know what the hell I'm going to speak on, but we'll figure that out.
Well, we'll talk about that.
I'll do a
chainsaws would be great. I mean,
do a whole thing on chainsaws.
People don't realize how complex it is to clean up after a storm with chainsaws. They just want to go out there and Rambo it. So that's not a bad topic. Like, really know what you're doing before you hurt yourself or somebody else. Here's a totally off the wall question. Do you think Scully should shave his beard like John's, or John should grow out his beard like Scully?
Bear would tell you that I don't have enough facial hair.
You never have enough.
I actually trimmed mine recently, so you're doing all right, John. Yeah,
I've noticed it. I noticed it.
I prefer a clean shaven look personally.
That's working for you, Nicole.
Thanks.
Yeah, maybe just like a handlebar mustache for you, I think would be great.
Yeah, just two little curls,
or the big circles, Civil War mutton chops.
Only if I get to wear a top hat.
I will buy you the top hat if you get mutton chops.
DH Info there says Coronado's considering a law that would require Canada. So California already has that. California cannot sell any small lawn equipment with gas motors, and you have tons of municipalities for the last decade where you couldn't use motor driven. Everything had to be electric. And of course Canada, because they've already taken away all their guns, they're scared of their chainsaws.
Chainsaws can do a lot of damage, especially in the we've seen it in the horror movies. In the hands of a psycho killer, chainsaws do a lot. Okay, what has been the most used EDC item on a bear deployment?
Flashlight.
Flashlight, yeah.
Same one.
Flashlight.
Yep. Love them.
Yep. Flashlight for sure. Well, that and a knife. But most knives, if I'm being perfectly honest, or cutting steak. But as far as like actual like doing the things, the flashlight, especially search and rescue operations. And I'll tell you, I got a gripe on this and all other rechargeable USB rechargeable flashlights. That's a really if you need it right now. And then if you need it right now and it's not charged, what do? So you can have a couple different rechargeable flashlights. I have 3 of them with me right now. I have an Olight, I have a Surefire, I have a Streamlight, and then I've also got all rechargeable. And then I've got this one here, the Streamlight ProTac 2LX. And the nice thing about this, even though it has a rechargeable battery in it, come on, you.
Cartridge, yep.
It's got an 18650 in it, but I can put CR123s in here right now if I need a light right now. And so I'm kind of over the rechargeable thing on flashlights, honestly, because it's nice. It's a nice to have during everyday use, but when you need it in an emergency, if the damn thing's not charged, you're screwed. And so, yeah, but definitely a flashlight.
Jeff says the 511 lights, and I know the Coast also, a lot of the rechargeables have an insert where you can put doubles or triples in them.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good move. But then, of course, it's like have spare batteries. Now we're back to like basic prepper shit. It becomes systems. You know,
lithium.
It's all about systems. Like, you know, I have a battery pack counterweight on the back of my helmet for my nods, right? And so every time I need batteries, I end up like pulling out my ballistic helmet and fishing through the battery pack, which is fun, you know, when you're on like a search and rescue thing and people like when you have to move your battle rifle out of the way to get to your nods to put a battery in your flashlight, and people are like, who the hell is this guy? So, whatever.
Okay, Nicole, do you mind asking Bear's military medical background?
So, was never in the military. Wanted to be, couldn't be. Broke my sternum, and so I was medically disqualified. And then fast forward, 9/11 happened, and I was in the power construction industry. And it turns out there were a bunch of people that were really concerned about stuff getting attacked here on the homeland. Like, so not only were we fighting over there, we were also still really concerned about getting attacked over here. So I did a bunch of consultant stuff with DOD about here's how you break the United States electrical grid so that now you know how to look for bad guys who want to break it. And then from there, I'm a networker. You build relationships, and so you start cross-training with people and SF guys and SEALs and DIA and, you know, FBI and blah, blah, blah. And so I've had a bunch of training, but never in any official capacity from a bunch of people who work for and with the United States government.
All right. Somebody asks, would conventional storage methods for prepping work for tornado areas, or should subterranean methods be used?
Always subterranean.
Anyone can answer this.
Everybody, subterranean is always better. It's just expensive. I mean, your government does everything subterranean, whether there's tornadoes or not.
Yeah, subterranean is always going to be better, even for temperature control. And it's always going to be better.
I mean, I'd say this: if not putting your stuff underground is keeping you from having a preparedness plan and a system where you keep a rotating supply of things that you would need, then you're wrong. If you can't do subterranean, don't wait till you're perfect to start prepping or put all of your money into being able to dig a hole. Start prepping at a minimum. You can diversify locations if you have friends, and from there, if you're able to do some underground storage or have a shelter to put some things in, that's great. But why not both?
Yeah,
That's what I was going to say.
Even the federal government, FEMA and OSHA will tell you that you should have. I think they've increased it to almost a week's worth of food now. So that's not really prepper. That's just everybody should have it, because if there's a storm like this, you should be able to grab it and just leave if you have to.
What were you going to say, Bear? Have we lost him again?
He'll be back.
He'll be back.
It's you, Nicole, that you shouldn't let perfect. And so if I had $1 bajillion, I'd have one of those 9,000 square foot bunkers underneath my house that would have everything I'd wanted and needed in it. I don't have $1 bajillion, man. And so I have a diversity of locations for my stuff, right? And so you also, I think it's really in your best interest to look at the probability of things, not just the possibility of things. Like, I live in eastern Oklahoma. Tornadoes are an actual threat. Earthquakes, no. Fires, maybe. Flooding, occasionally. Hurricanes, no. Right? And so that narrows down the possibility of threats significantly. Right? And so if you live in, Alabama, the tornadoes probably aren't that big of a deal for you. Hurricanes might be, right? And so just being realistic with what the threats look like so that you can take the appropriate action. But definitely don't let the fact that you don't have a subterranean network of bunkers and underground high-speed railways keep you from, putting beans in buckets and making friends. That would just be stupid in my mind.
Making friends being really key, because if you are obliterated, your house is obliterated by a tornado, and you have a friend with a sofa, you're in a way better place than if you're on the floor of the church.
Hell yeah.
I think that's something, like, have a plan where to go, because sometimes you can't stay here. Hey, when they condemn a house, do they let you go in and get your shit out that you love, or is it just that's it?
It depends on the house, but generally speaking, yes. And usually we do that with like a 4-man team. We'll go in with the homeowners, and it's kind of gut-wrenching, but you really need to prioritize. We don't need that pair of socks that, my Aunt Sandy knitted me that one time. Like, get grandma's ashes, get the family Bible, get your box full of loot, the deed to your property, your paperwork, stuff like that. Get that. The irreplaceable stuff. The rest of it's just stuff. That's what we have insurance for. And I can't tell y'all more strongly, make sure your insurance is up to date, and that you have as much coverage as you need to replace the cost of your house, because we see this all across the country. Make sure you don't assume. I had a catastrophic shop fire 6 years ago, $1.4 million loss. And we had just under $400,000 in insurance. I had $1 million rider. Turns out that $1 million rider doesn't cover fire. If you were worried about fire, you should have had fire insurance. Well, asshole, you're the one who sold me the policy, right? And so make sure that you've got all the insurance that you need. And yes, it's expensive, but insurance is money that you use to protect assets. It's not an investment. Investment is money that makes you more money. Insurance is an expense that protects assets, and it's worth doing. But when it comes to a condemned house, generally speaking, as long as there's some structural stability to the house, we'll go in with people, help them get their stuff out, and usually that looks like those big Rubbermaid totes. Fill those totes full of stuff, and then get them into a Connex box or offsite to a friend's house or whatever. And then the house is labeled what's called a DNE, or a do not enter. And then once it's DNE, you can't go back in there because the structure of the house has been compromised to the point that it might come down on itself. And we actually see that in a lot of cases, houses that have been condemned, before you can get a machine over to push the house down on top of itself, it just falls down. And what's kind of gut wrenching as well is, in a lot of cases, you'll find houses like that where you're pulling them up on the map. There's a surveying app that we use. You pull them up on the app, and yeah, it's a red. It's D&E, do not enter. It's a complete loss. And so you go survey the house, and there's still people living inside of it because they don't have another place to go, you know. And so then that turns into basically victim services at that point of finding them a place to live, you know. And we we do a lot as far as like, let's just go to Walmart. Like, find the nearest Walmart and like everything you need, from underwear to socks to jeans to toothbrush to sheets and air mats, everything you need. Let's just go, because that's easier than, you should come by our fob and we have some tarps and some bottled water for you. It's like, take these people to Walmart, buy them everything they need. But yeah, people cling to what they know, even if what they know is a house that's about to fall down on top of themselves.
That makes sense. Okay. Here's just a comment. It's a good time for you to explain to us what Grindstone Ministries does. So Grindstone Ministries can use your support. Please consider donating to help out. Bear, before we started, I was like, I heard you explain Grindstone Ministries on your own channel in the best way possible. You started with the disaster side, but then you went over to Caleb House. So can you just tell us, what is that all about?
So Grindstone Ministries is a 501c3. We're registered in the state of Oklahoma and with the federal government. We have the same authorities as the American Red Cross. We do disaster relief and construction. We're all volunteer. We have deployed 36 times in the last 3 years. We are 100% volunteer supported. I have never even been offered, let alone taken, a dime from any agency, organization, government, tribe, nothing. It's all the Bear Nation, the people who follow our channel, Bear Independent, who have enabled us to do this. And it typically comes in $5, $10, and $20 bills. And what we do is, when there's a need like this, when a storm hits, we deploy, generally speaking, immediately, and we do disaster relief. There's two distinct phases in a disaster: relief and recovery. Relief is short term, 3 days to a month long, depending on the scope of the disaster. Recovery is 6 months to years, and it's the rebuilding process. Occasionally, we do rebuilding, remediation. I have crews in Florida right now that are remediating a flooded house for a Gold Star mother who lost her son in Afghanistan in 2009. Her house got flooded. They're awesome people. We met them and it's like, yep, we're going to fix your house, Ma. And we've had people there for 6-7 weeks now working on her house after Hurricane Ian. But generally speaking, we do relief. What that entails is construction and demolition debris, search and rescue, medical teams, lots and lots and lots of hauling of debris, saw teams, and then what we call strike teams. And strike teams are when we go out into the community with hot meals and consumables, the stuff that people need. Baby formula, bottles, diapers, wipes, feminine hygiene products, all that stuff, and distribute that to the people that have been most affected by the storm. Because in a lot of cases, you'll see like mega churches and the American Red Cross and all that stuff, they set up in a big parking lot, and you can have whatever they got as long as you come get it.
Yeah.
Well, when all of your life is destroyed and you can't get out of your house, or there's a tree on top of your car, you're not going to come get it. And so we go out and find those people and distribute that stuff to them, which also functions in a recon capacity. So now we're getting eyes out on the community, and we can start to plot those areas on a map and get a better understanding of what the storm did and where it did it. So that's what Grindstone is. And while we were, a couple, 3 years ago, we were doing a construction project for a place called Bethany House in northeastern Oklahoma, which is a restoration facility for juvenile human trafficking survivors, aka kids who have been trafficked. And that started as, in one of their buildings, they had some flooring that was soft. And can you guys come take a look at it? And long and short, we ended up putting our hands all 12 buildings on 54 acres that they have. their well, their septic system, their electrical, their HVAC, roofing, everything. We just ended up getting our fingerprints on everything. And I began to learn about anti-human trafficking while we were there. And the statistics are abominable. $150 billion per year industry in the United States. 83,000 kids per month go missing in the United States. And there are 420 beds nationwide for juvenile survivors. And so I got punched in the forehead by the father while I was there that, hey, you're going to build more of these. Okay, sounds great. Roger that, Dad. We'll make more. So we started Caleb House. And Caleb House is a separate 501c3. And we rescue and rehabilitate juvenile human trafficking survivors through Caleb House. We are in the process of building Caleb House, which is not fully funded. We were just denied a grant that we applied to because we didn't suit their whatever. So thanks, but no thanks. But we've bought the land and begun the process of doing the dirt work and road building and drainage remediation on property there. All funded by the Bear Nation, private donations. Again, and never got a dime from anybody wearing a suit on this. And while we were in the process of building Caleb House, we currently have 24 kiddos right now, ages 1 to 19, that we've rescued from being trafficked, that are in different safe houses that we acquire and staff 24/7 around the clock. And we currently have an ongoing operation right now to recover a 6-year-old. So, you know, just professional LARPer over here. We don't do anything meaningful at all, ever. So, but that's what Caleb House and Grindstone is. And it's super badass because, you know, all these prepping channels, or most of these prepping channels, you know, 15 reasons the zombies are going to rape your dog and eat your kids, you know, all that horse shit. It's like, yeah, or maybe we could take this voice that we have and use it for good. And it's been super cool to see people pour into opportunities to do good shit. Right. And that for me is the whole reason that you prep in the first place. Right. Like for me, prepping is maintaining normalcy for the people that you love. That's what it is.
Do you find local law enforcement in areas you're operating more on your side or against you?
It depends, but generally speaking, they're on our side. It doesn't hurt that when we show up, there's usually at least a couple dozen of us, and we're us. And I don't know everything there is to know about any of this stuff, human trafficking or disaster relief or any of it. I'm still learning every day as well. But we've done this 36 times in the last 3 years. And so I've got a pretty good understanding of how it's going to go, what the op tempo looks like, what the jurisdictional responsibilities are, who needs to do what, when, how, and why. And so for us, this is storm number 36. For them, it's storm number 1. They don't know what the hell to do. And so if we can offer a little bit of insight when we liaise with them, which we do, it helps them out greatly. You know, we were talking to the fire marshal out here because people were burning brush. Natural response. Got all these trees down, I'm going to burn brush. This started on day 3. And I said, you should really put a burn ban in place for right now. Give it about a week. They're like, why? It's fine. We're just burning brush. So how many firefighters do you have up right now? The answer is 0. Because they've been going for 72 hours straight in response to the storm. So what happens if one of these fires gets out of hand? You got nobody to drive the engines. Hadn't thought about that, right? And so, again, I don't know everything, but we've seen it enough times to say, yeah, you can burn all the brush you want a week from now when everybody's had a nap and a cookie. Today's not the day. And so we do, you know, do the same thing with law enforcement, just from a traffic control standpoint. And what to look for as far as like the really affected neighborhoods, you know, need to be controlled access only. You don't need to be going in and out of that neighborhood unless you live there or you're working there. You know, no looky-loos and no looters, stuff like that. And we all carry, we're us, you know, in Oklahoma, there's 4 laws. And one of them, I'm pretty sure, is if you're over 18, you have to have a gun. And so we all have guns and we carry, and we, generally speaking, don't ask permission to do that. But it's also, the vibe is different when a storm has just hit. If you're there to help, you're there to help. and we kind of look and act like they do. You know, we have a uniform, we have a look, we have a vibe, we have radios and guns and badges, and here we are, let's do this. And so they kind of let us do whatever the hell we want to do. Did I lose y'all?
I hear you, but I don't hear Nicole. I think she's muted. Nicole is muted.
Nicole is
Oh,
muted.
no.
I said it's amazing how when people know what they're doing and are reasonable, that you can get in and get a lot done just by communicating and being competent. Because there's a lack of competence after a disaster. There's a lot of squee going on.
Well, and it's not an ego thing either.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to sleep great tonight, regardless of who acknowledges the fact that I'm here today, right? Like, I'm not here to, you know, throw my giant balls around in the emergency operations command and be like, we're with Grindstone and we're here to save the day. No, man, we're here to help. And that being said, here's what we're good at. Here's what we can help you with. You tell us what you need us to do. And generally speaking, in a lot of these places, it's their first storm. They have no idea what the hell to do. And so if we can alleviate some of that anxiety for them and take a little bit of that responsibility for them, it all the better. It actually ends up helping the community greatly. And this is another aspect of Grindstone that a lot of people miss is if you're into preparedness, right? And you're strong enough where you are in your prepper game that you can come assist. This is about as close to SHTF you're going to get until the balloon is truly all the way up in the air. You should come on one of these deployments because in many cases, there's no power, there's no running water, there's no commo, there's no grocery store. It's you and your bug out bag, and you're affecting your own security and your own commo and your own logistics, and you got to handle all that stuff. And so it's really good training for us as well to be able to do this and do it in a way that benefits mankind as a whole, but we still get reps and sets on all of our systems. You know, I know what works and doesn't work because we're out here using it. I'm not pontificating about it on the internet. So I would encourage you, if you've ever thought about, man, that sounds really cool, I might want to go do that, you should come and do that. Go to grindstoneministries.com, sign up for the newsletter, and the next time we do this, we will email you and tell you where we're going to be and what we're doing. And then bring your bug out system and pressure test it. You're going to learn a metric shit ton just by doing that.
Yes, you'll. For those on the audio, if you're interested in learning more about Grindstone Ministries, it's grindstoneministries.com, and you can get additional information from there just to get that URL out there. Are we ready for a fortune?
A fortune?
Yeah. What?
Very, very ready for a fortune?
Sure.
What is she talking about? Every so often we read fortunes from Chinese food and see what we think about them. You ready? Good sense is the master of human life. Good sense is the master of human life. What do you think about that one?
I think it depends on whose life we're talking about. Met a lot of people that had no sense at all. So maybe.
Maybe. John, what do you think?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm with Bear. I'm with Bear. Bear, you give us a fortune.
You reap what
Wisdom.
you sow.
There. Okay.
You reap
I like
what
it.
you sow. Do good shit, and good shit will happen. And the active word in there is do. So many people sit around and bitch and moan and complain and whine and pray and think and pontificate and talk and wonder about and hope. Go do shit. Put your hand to the plow. Go do shit. It is you. If you're not sowing, there's nothing to reap. And if you sow bullshit, you will reap bullshit. You sow good, you will reap good. You know, I'm not a wealthy man, but I have everything I need and most of what I want. And that all comes from just doing good shit to the best of my ability. That's it. That's the proverb of the day. Do good shit. Be a doer, not a talker. Exactly, Amanda. So, and to
She's a
that
smart
point, I
cookie.
actually need to go run a chainsaw. So,
Okay. All right. Well, Bear, thanks for being on.
thanks for having me. I know we scheduled this like a month ago before this tornado happened, and I didn't know we were just going to be talking all about Grindstone Ministries today, but I do appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, my friends, as you think about your year-end giving, this is a great option. It is a 501c3 nonprofit, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is. So that is a tax write-off for those of you who are worried about those sorts of things. And,
And,
you're going to be
you're,
solicited by every Red Cross type organization in the world. Give to one that's actually making a difference.
yeah, not to badmouth our friends at the Red Cross, but they don't do anything. They drive around in brand new cars and take pictures of stuff and then drive away. We're just out here trying to do stuff. And if you are a concrete guy, framer, roofer, doors and windows, trim carpenter, cabinet maker, flooring tile guy, and you want to plug in with the construction of Caleb House to help us rehabilitate these kiddos, email us. Go to Grindstone Ministries and contact us, because I got to build this facility, whether any of these foundations out there want to give us money or not. And so we are building it. We're in the process of building it, regardless of whether or not anybody who's got a big, checkbook wants to help us or not.
How many beds?
If you want to plug in,
how many beds are you trying to? How many beds are you trying to create?
So that first facility, notice I said first facility, will be able to accommodate 60 individuals. And then my goal from there is to, I want to be the McDonald's of recovery facilities. I want to build one every place we need one until we don't need them anymore. And I've been told that that's a ridiculously lofty goal, and I don't give a shit. That's what I want to. That's what I'm gonna do, and hopefully at some point we'll work ourselves out of a job. I like big goals. Little goals are not meaningful to me. I don't like crossing stuff off a list. I want big, ugly goals that scare me so much that I have no choice but to respect the shit out of them and pay attention to them. And so this first one will sleep 6 kids, and then after that, we'll figure out where the next one goes, and the next one, and the next one. And our program, by the way, is not a year-long program. We are a lifetime program. Because how do you tell a 1-year-old, hey, buddy, you got a year to get you together, then best of luck. So we use a house parents model, and those kiddos are our kiddos, and we will raise them up in the way that they should go, so they do not depart from it when they are older. And then when they're old enough to...
And we lost him.
Yes, we did.
Chainsaw. Well, if he logs back in, great. If not, that was a great talk with Bear. You guys want to hang around and chat with Scully?
We got a couple minutes. Talk to them about it.
Oh, John's got to go outside.
Scully, tell us all your things.
There's probably a chicken problem. I don't have things. I'm just living the dream. Living the dream. That's all. I'm actually, John has kept me overtime. I'm supposed to be pulling wire out at my place right now. Got probably 11 acres I'm fencing in for give the cows a little more room. At my place. But that's all I'm doing is just cows and Unimog and just having fun.
What kind of wire are you pulling?
Barbed wire.
Yeah.
Yeah, just putting up a barbed wire fence.
Oh, imagine having animals that worked on. I have goats.
Goats. I think the goats would just jump on the wire and walk around on it.
Yeah, that's what they do. Sheep are actually pretty good at getting out too, surprisingly.
I don't know anything about farm animals except for all the animals that John has, and then we have 4 cows, and I have just beyond my imagination, I have a cow that knows how to climb fences. And like when I first saw it, I didn't even understand what was going on, but she literally will put her hooves on the fence and pull it down until she gets it about chest high, and then just push herself across to get out to wander around, and she'll wander around all night, and we'll look for her and everything, and then in the morning she'll be back, just waiting to get back in the pen. So
This a cow?
Cow, yeah.
This the cow that got pregnant?
Yeah, the cow that has.
They came home and they had an extra cow.
This cow. So we have no bulls. We have no bulls, and this one particular cow, I've got 2 calves from.
Yeah. So she just goes and finds what she needs to find. In other words,
Immaculate conception. She finds them, or this last one was born, and Gina was looking out the window, and she's like, "Why is the dog out there with the cow?" We had no idea. No idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the fun of farm life.
Let's just live the farm life and try and keep the cow from.
Okay, well, Scully, you may not know this. This goes out on my audio podcast, and for those people on my podcast, they may not know who you are. Can you tell us who you are in 2 minutes? 2 minutes. Go.
Who I am? I'm just a former employee of John's.
Yeah.
That's it. Nothing exciting. I was in the Marine Corps for 20 years, and that's about it. Came out here to live in Tennessee, in the free state of Tennessee, from California.
Yeah. Escaped California.
I did escape California. I came here at the right time, too, right before everybody started going crazy and buying everything.
I ran into Jeff and I said, "Are you ready to come to freedom?" And I told him a bunch of stuff about Tennessee. And even after he moved here, he still thought that it wasn't all true, even though he saw it all. Like I didn't over exaggerate anything.
Yeah, I thought, like when we first came out here to look for a house, I thought everybody was too nice. Like I'm like, everybody here is too nice. There's no mean people anywhere. And even like you could catch people talking shit about other people, like, but they would say it in such a nice way that it was like, man, that doesn't really even count. And we were up in Paris. We've been looking for a house for about a week, and we're up in Paris, and we're at Burger King, and this old man is just going bananas about ketchup. He's like, "I need my ketchup," and he's yelling at this poor girl at the counter about his ketchup. He didn't get his ketchup, and she comes over and she gives him his ketchup. And I'm like, I'm telling Gina, I'm like, there it is. I told you that there was assholes here, just like California. And she comes over and gives him his ketchup, and then he spends 15 minutes apologizing to her about yelling at her because he needed his ketchup. And I'm like, man, that doesn't even count. You can't say you're sorry. I really thought that it was a big plot to get me to move to Tennessee. And then as soon as I moved to Tennessee, they were going to like jump out of the bushes and be like, "We got you. Ha ha. We're all really assholes." I mean, the truth of the matter is, I lived in California most of my life. Even, I was stationed at Camp Pendleton and 29 Palms. I grew up in California, and it has just changed so abruptly to where everybody is just, I don't want to say there's no nice people in California, because there are, but everybody is completely rude at the drop of a hat. Everybody wants to just, their egos. I think the ego in California is so bad, where it's not that way here. Like when I was working here, there was a couple employees that were like, "You can't go here. You shouldn't go to this place." And I'd always be like, "Where is it? I want to see this. I want to see where if not to join, because I know some people will say that, but if you tell me there's a Klan meeting somewhere, I want to go, because I don't believe it. I want to go and see, and I want to be like, hey, how are you even still doing this?
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't, again, there's racism everywhere, but what I'm saying is people here generally are much more tolerant of everything. Like, here's an example. Most people won't understand this. I lived in California my entire life. I moved here. Within a week of being here, my wife, or a couple of months, not really a week, my wife says, "We're going to go to a birthday party. The three amigos are having a birthday party." I'm like, "The three amigos?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's 3 gay guys that work at Loretta Lynn's ranch, and they're having a birthday party." I'm like, "I don't really want to go to that." They're like, "Well, you're going to go because your other friend's going, and we need to go." So I go to this party, and the three amigos, they just three guys living together. They bring over one of Loretta Lynn's grandchildren who's transgender. But again, never in in the 50 years I live in California was that part of the world where it's just here everything seems a little more tolerated. Because like in California, when anybody says everything's segregated there, like everything's segregated. If you want to, the gay community in Hillcrest and San Diego, everything's very segregated. Where it seems like here people are just more tolerant of everything, which I like.
Yeah, I moved here from Oregon, and Portland area was where I was before I came here. And people asked me what it was about Tennessee that made me stay here, because I just came to visit and then went home, packed, and moved out. And I was like, well, everybody's much more open-minded here, which is not what people expect to hear. But that's exactly what you're explaining is similar to what I experienced. Your personal choices and opinions generally are your own, and people aren't worried about it. Yeah, wherein in Oregon, every personal decision I made, from whether I recycle this plastic bottle to what kind of meat I serve at a dinner party, was up for debate.
Yeah, I feel like California pretends to be this open and this great place to live, where when you come here to Tennessee, people are actually living that way. Like I feel like people here really understand freedom, and they understand, mind your own business, really.
Yeah, mind your own business is a huge part of freedom.
Where in California, they just pretend. They're just pretending that they're acceptance of everything when they're really not.
Yeah, it's really hard to mind your own business when a friend's doing something is hurting themselves. But there's a point where there's nothing you can do to change their choice, right? You can talk to a friend once, but you're not just going to walk up to a perfect stranger and be like, hey, dude, maybe you shouldn't do the meth. You think that's going to be the thing that keeps them from doing drugs? No, I don't think so. It saves nobody.
Once they're doing the meth,
do more meth.
Yeah, you can't have the conversation once they're in the meth.
Yeah, the reality at that level, nobody can save. When you're in that deep, nobody can save you but yourself.
Yeah,
you have to consciously make a decision to better your life, and if you're not willing to do that, it doesn't matter how much effort I'm going to put into it. If you are not ready to save yourself, then it's not going to happen.
True story. Okay, I got a question here from Travis. Where's Scully been hiding the past year? Everybody,
in Waverly, Tennessee.
Inquiring minds.
2 years in Waverly, Tennessee.
15 minutes from here.
Waverly.
Hey, it's a small town, and it is 45 minutes from here.
No, if we could drive, if there was a road to his house, it's 15 minutes. But the way he's got it, it's.
Don't let John fool you. It's 45 minutes. It's a perfect decompression drive.
Yeah, Waverly is a really cool little town.
Jeff's assembling his own town. He has a lot of acreage. He just bought a church. He is putting together.
I'm not doing anything of the sort. The church was on high ground. I had to buy
it. Because now you know where high ground is in Waverly, don't you?
Yeah, the church was on high ground from my place, so I had to buy it.
Yeah. Scully, in 1 minute or less, what will the United States look like in 5 years from now, and what will be the best thing about America's future?
Ooh, 5 minutes. I don't even know. 5 years from now, I think it's a toss-up is what's going on here. The problem is you have people in power right now where their policies are complete failures, and they know it, but they're not willing to give up the power. And so if you look around at the microcosm of things that are going on, there's a bunch of places right now in the United States that are trying to secede from their parent states, like Oregon, Eastern Oregon is trying to secede. There's a couple of counties in California that are trying to secede.
Northern California.
You see these grassroots things going on, and I think that the one in Oregon is like getting on the ballot. If they are able to, if one of these grassroots organizations are able to secede to join another state, we are going to be a mess because it's going to happen all over the place. And the problem is, from a liberal perspective, is when you live in Los Angeles or you live in New York City and you think you're the epicenter of the world, you just don't understand that you only have 24 hours of food, and all that food comes from red states. It just comes from red states. So what are you going to do when they secede and they're no longer part of your state or your county or whatever? So it'll be interesting in 5 years what happens. I don't think it's going to get that bad. We tend to correct, right? We tend to correct when we oversteer the ship, and so the truth of the matter is they need to keep everybody very comfortable. As long as they keep everybody comfortable, and they can keep stealing the money that they're stealing from all of us, and we don't really mind because we're comfortable. The minute we become uncomfortable is when there's going to be a real problem.
For them.
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is it'll be for everybody, because if we decide to break up this union, it's going to be a mess. And when Democrats or Republicans or whatever are talking about who's where or what, it's a lot different than the first Civil War, because in the first Civil War there was there were lines. We knew if you went south of the Mason-Dixon line that you were at war. Where
now you're an island.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Your neighbor, you don't know who your neighbor is, really, what their political agenda is, because we, as a country, we have destroyed community. That's part of, when you think about natural responses for disasters, it's community that's more important than government. Government is going to come in. Everybody thinks that government's going to come in and save the day. All they're going to do is spread some money around, and that money usually doesn't trickle down to the people who actually need it. Whereas if you have a solid community, you don't really need the government to show up, because the community will take care of everybody. And the community, you think about, the community knows who the lowest common denominator is and who's going to need what. So, I mean, 5 years from now, man, I'll just be happy if it's even keel.
These United States.
Yeah,
still?
These United States. I'll be happy, because I don't want to. I'm not preparing for a civil war. I don't want a civil war to happen, because it'll be the end of the United States for the most part. And what most people don't understand is we're not just talking about America. We're talking about the entire world. The minute our ships stop policing the Persian Gulf, the Pacific, the minute we stop focusing on the things that we do now, the minute we have to pull troops out of Germany to quell riots in California or wherever, the whole world is going to catch on fire. Like, it will be the whole world. It won't just be the United States. If we cease to operate the way we are, which is politically it's terrible, but if we cease to continue to police the way we do, China is just 2 seconds away from going after Taiwan. But Taiwan is not really what they want. What they really want is the African continent. That's why they do their Belt and Road down there, because they know that Libya or Nibia cannot afford their multi-billion-dollar contract, and they're going to default. And then the Chinese are just like, hey, now that's our road.
There's Chinese all over Africa right now.
So it's for the United States to stumble a little bit would be a tragedy for the entire world, not just the United States. I don't want to say I don't worry, because I live in Tennessee. I moved to a place that I believe will be relatively, not stable, but relatively a safe place to live, if,
as compared to a major city.
Yeah, if we do have these incursions. It's hard to say how things will be in 5 years. I think that the reality is we are doing better. I mean, we are doing better, but we are allowing our government to do so little for how much we are giving them. They really need to be reined in.
we want to believe in, you know, the left or the right, or Trump will fix things, or whatever it is you want to believe in. But the reality is that your Democrats, your Republicans today are just Obama era Democrats, and the Democrats are the liberals. And what used to be the liberal is absolutely fucking insane. And they've got those few hooks in there that they just keep, we're maneuvering our way of life, or they're trying to maneuver our ways of life for the less than doing all the crazy shit. But that's what we're focused on. You know, are they real? Like Jeff says, yes. Do we have transgenders in the military? We do. We're actually paying for their surgeries. But once they have to come back up on a security clearance, they can't pass a security clearance. So they go out and then they work in the private sector. Will that continue? Probably not. Our military looks pretty weak and pretty silly over all the nonsense that's happened over the last, especially 2 years, 4 years. But
they look at, you know, when the bean counters, you know, we've been, as far as the military is concerned, we've been very fortunate that the Democrats and the Republicans understand the military industrial machine has to keep churning, or they will not get reelected. But when things get a little tight for the military, they start counting those beans. And the one interesting thing about transgenders in the military, I don't know why we got on this, but just the interesting thing about transgenders in the military is usually after they transition, they get out. Not because any other reason, but they just get out. Now, that's an expensive surgery for the military to be paying for. Like, so I don't foresee, you know, if they go through any posterior cuts, if the military has to tighten its belt, those are the kind of things that they go after. Like, they'll go after retirement pay. They already killed the retirement system, but they'll go after retirement pay and things like that. And anything that's on the outside edge that they're doing to make things better for people, they'll go after it and they'll cut it. Like, the first time I went over to Iraq and we came back, there was this miracle sleeping pill that they wanted to give this miracle sleeping pill to everybody so that they could sleep when they came back. And they started issuing these pills out and giving them to the Marines so they could sleep. Well, they became addictive, and then nobody said anything. They just fed these pills to these military personnel. And then when it came time to deploy again, whenever you deploy, they're like, hey, any prescription medication has to be filled prior to deployment. You need a 90-day supply. And so everybody was going to BAS and going, hey, I need 90 days of these. And they're like, we can't fill that for everybody. That's just too much money. Like, at that point, they're like, we can't do that. So now you have all these kids that are going back over for another deployment. They can't sleep because they're addicted to these stupid pills that the government force-fed them to take anyways. Or I don't want to say force-fed, kind of did the initial
Made
study.
It easy, but right.
Yeah, made it easy for to get those pills, and it just becomes a long-term problem. So, I mean, in big picture, government can't do a lot for you. I don't know.
Well, I think it's interesting you bring up the community aspect, because one of the things I like about talking to John and having these live streams is we'll talk about the problems, but what's the solution?
The solution is don't need them.
Right. The solution is people like you moving to Tennessee because you say, hey, this seems like a safer place to be. It is if more people like you move to Tennessee.
Yeah,
the more people who are willing to just go out and help, who are willing to not be the problem, who are willing to be the solution, makes it a better place to be.
How many of our people would you say have moved to Tennessee?
It's quite a lot. It's quite a lot.
How many guys would you say you have here?
5. And there's more that are coming once they retire. It's just, retirement. Could there possibly be better states to live in? Probably. It's just.
What do you think it would be?
I don't know. I don't know.
So Elon Musk, I heard Elon Musk say the other day, he said, we couldn't set this up in California because it would take 2 years to get the permits. He said, we couldn't even break ground for 2 years. We had the whole project built in 6 months in Texas. And he said, plus in California, literally every week, somebody new is suing us because they're able to in California. He said, we don't have all that went away by moving it to Texas.
Yeah.
Here, I mean, they give
That's
us
the same here.
We get any piece of equipment we want and they drop it off. They don't leave a guy. I don't have to have an ecological study. I mean, I don't have to have anything. They just bring it.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a trailer, we'll just come pick it up and we drive it down the road. Like we can do anything we want to do here.
That's the amazing thing when John says heavy equipment. They just drop the heavy equipment off here and they don't even ask, do you know how to use it? They're just like, hey, we'll come back in a week and get it. Which is, I mean, it's nice. But when you're, I would say
just own enough property that the guy next to you, when he makes the mistake, it can't affect you.
Yeah, it's population driven. I mean, we're out far enough in smaller communities where they haven't seen the problems like California's seen. You get that many people crowded into certain areas and it's just constant something's going on.
But it's bureaucracy. I mean, you gotta pay this guy for the butterfly study. You got to pay this guy for the tree stuff. I mean, it's constant bullshit.
It's the spotted owl in Oregon.
Yeah, we had that spotted owl. Yeah, it tastes terrible too. Don't ever eat one.
Good to know. Good to know. It's because they're predators, John.
Yes, that's right.
Here's a question, totally out of left field here. What's some recent things you guys have been doing to prepare for the winter?
For me, it's just been fuel.
For
me, it's just been propane. I have 3 tanks on my property, and just making sure that those tanks have been completely filled. The extra diesel fuel I keep for the trucks and the tractor, and then I do keep a little bit of gasoline on hand just in case. But that's been it, is the fuel, because we have been fortunate here in Tennessee, or in the South in general, or Southeast in general, that we've had a pretty light winter beginning so far, a pretty light fall. But the price of all that stuff is going to go through the roof because of what's going on in Ukraine. With the pipeline being shut down and all of Europe dependent on, imagine that.
Because we're sending our shit there.
Europe goes completely green except for the big, huge pipe that they have going through the Pacific in order to eat all their, or from the, not the Pacific, I don't know what ocean that is, but the big, huge pipe that they have going from Russia to Europe in order to heat all their homes. All our heating fuel and propane is going to go to Europe. So the price here is going to spike.
And think about that while they're shutting down all those coal-fired power plants. They're not just shutting them down. They're demoing them so that they cannot ever come back online.
And it's interesting that we are shutting our plants down, and China said it's going to increase 20% coal this year.
Because we have coal. It comes right on these barges. But then you've got the rivers. All the grains and commodities move. Most of that shit moves, 80%, I think they said, moves down the Mississippi River. It can't go under through Memphis. There's no water there. So all that stuff they put on the barges, that's why you have all this cotton sitting in fields right now. They're not moving it. It's sitting there till the next year.
It looks really cool, though.
It does look cool.
Yeah,
it looks cool. That's the important part.
But that farmer can't sell it.
Right.
Which will be all right.
We get some rain.
It will be all right for them because the commodity market's going to go through the roof next year, and the cotton's going to be worth a lot more money. Once all this stuff gets opened up, that cotton's going to be worth a lot more money. I mean, really everything. Corn. The price is only going to go up on everything. I mean, a gallon of diesel gas in Waverly, Tennessee is $5.38. Now, every can, every bag of rice, everything that we have comes in a diesel truck, and that is only going to get passed on to the consumer. I don't really think we've seen a price hike for the expensive fuel. So it's going to get passed on to the consumer. As far as the winter's concerned, I'm focusing on getting to spring. So I have extra food and extra this and that in order to get to spring at least.
We've been doing it all last spring and summer and fall already. I mean, we were always buying more than we needed. We're sitting on, I mean, we haven't really done anything different right now.
Yeah.
I need some more straw. I'll probably bring in some round bales for the sheep just for over winter, but we're sitting pretty good because we've done it for the last, really 5 years. I mean, we were running out. So the real focus right now, most of my energy is in the sew shop. It's just in business and products and just money, making money.
Yeah. Which is helpful during inflation, right?
Yeah, everybody, money doesn't buy happiness. I don't know. It sure helps.
Have you ever seen anybody frowning on a jet ski? Nobody frowns on a jet ski. Funny about that.
Anytime
most people wake up
money
every
is
morning.
bad. Have you ever seen somebody frowning on a jet ski?
Yeah, most people wake up every morning to go to a job they don't like to make a minimal amount of money. I'd say it is about money.
Yeah. That's funny. Same here, John. We're mulching in plants, and I was just out talking to Tactical about bedding for the animals because it's going to be 20 tonight. This year I got way ahead of the curve on my firewood, so that's good. And fuel, same thing. I need to refill some propane tanks because we had an event 2 weeks ago. We went through them all, but other than that, we're good to go. And if it's one of those years that gets so frozen that it will freeze my pipes through my house, I'll just drain the house.
Yeah.
And I can live without running water if I need to for a few days. So
we seem to every few months we seem to go a day or two without running water.
Something like that. And you have city water.
We do. We don't need it, but we have it.
Yeah. How much extra feed do you keep for chickens? Weeks or months?
Weeks. I mean, we're always getting feed. I keep having that conversation with my co-op people and the farmers we know. I'm like, man, I've got big silos. Why don't we fill them up? And they're like, there's not a problem. There's not a cost advantage to fill them up. All this year we've planted all kinds of stuff that will grow and produce to feed to the animals, but it's not online yet. I mean, it's not available. Push come to shove and things did get tough, we would just kill off a lot of chickens. We would just eliminate a lot of stuff, or reduce their feed. I mean, they're still going to make an egg. They're not going to make as many. And then when summer comes or spring comes, do I have to kill chickens?
I mean, couldn't you just totally free range them?
Yeah, but not if there's snow on the ground. There's nothing for them to eat.
Yeah, winter time. You can give them table scraps, which you already do.
Yeah. Yeah, we produce a lot of scraps.
Those chickens eat better than most people.
Chickens eat beans and rice. I'm just saying.
Chickens will eat people.
Yeah, they will eat. And rats.
Yeah,
they love the mice.
I have live catch traps out there, and every morning I give mice to the chickens. You got to do it before you feed them, or they won't have interest, and the mice will get away. But the first thing I do is check the traps, dump them out for the chickens, and they literally grab them and rip them into pieces playing tug of war. Yeah, they eat them. Dead bunnies, if we have stillborn baby bunnies, they eat those. They eat everything.
Chickens are the cleanup crew.
For sure. And I mean, worst case, we could just open the fence and let them in the woods. I got 30 acres next door they've never had access to.
Yeah. But you're right. It's a little less prolific in the winter, although all your systems that you put in should be starting to produce by next year, right? Your fodder trees and whatnot.
Should be.
Yeah. Did your fodder trees live?
A lot of them did not, but some of them have. Yeah. We'll put a bunch more in spring.
Yeah.
Because once we put them in spring, they'll be able to get a foothold and come up enough that even once the grass takes off, when it warms up, it won't be able to choke them out.
Yeah. Well, they may be dormant soon, which means you could probably do the cutting thing on those hybrid poplar.
Yeah.
That's pretty easy to do. What is a fodder tree? A fodder tree, if you've never heard the term tree hay is when you harvest from trees to feed your animals as if it were hay. And a fodder tree is simply a variety of tree that has nutritional makeup and palatability for your animals. So I have a bunch of trees here that my goats and sheep love. And I manage them in a way that they keep regenerating small shoots, which the animals prefer. And I did it by looking at what I already had and trimming them, and then filling in with some other varieties of trees that animals like. And if you're really interested in fodder trees, if you search the YouTube channel for Fodder Tree Nick Ferguson, you will find a previous live stream that John and I did with him talking about those.
Yep. We put in hybrid willow, hybrid poplar, and Russian white mulberry.
Yep. And one of the trees I found locally that works well as a fodder tree is the box elder, which plants itself everywhere. That is for sheep and goats that I've used it for. They love it. So rather than regrow poplar where that was, I just trimmed them back.
Yep. And then we're not going to let them grow into trees. You're not going to have a big main shoot. We're going to compass them down very low, and they're going to put out a ton of new growth, almost like when you look at a blueberry plant, a blueberry shrub or tree. That's what these trees are going to look like. There's not ever going to be a main big stalk. We're going to take those young sapling pieces off, and we're going to use those. You can take the leaves and direct feed them. You can cut branches and direct feed them, or you can run the entire tender shoots through a wood chipper, and then you add salt and sugar, and then you cover it up and remove all the air, and you let it ferment, basically. So you're going to have ferment. That's going to create silage, which will store up to 24 months. And people will tell you, like, I did water hyacinth this year, tons of it, and we feed it to the animals. And then people are like, well, my animals won't eat it. Just like your child. If you stop giving them chicken nuggets, they will eat whatever you feed them.
I love how you say that. Just like your child. Yep. They will eventually eat it.
They'll eat.
Yeah, my ducks go up to my aquaponics system, and whatever hyacinth they can reach, they're eating it during the summer.
Yeah, we put water hyacinth in the 2 upper ponds, and in the big middle one, the ducks have access to it, and it was never there the next day, no matter how much we put in there.
Yep. They'll do that with duckweed too. It's why it's called duckweed, John.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, completely gone. It never got a foothold in that big pond. Not
surprised to hear that at all. Are you still buying the jet boil canisters? Prices have gone up wherever.
I do. I have hundreds of them. I want to say I have 1,000. I don't have 1,000. I've got well over 500 though. I mean, you guys have seen the videos when we go and buy them. We buy every one they have.
Scully is now David Crosby.
Is that David Crosby?
Somebody did see me the other day and was like, "Hey, are you one of the Oak Ridge boys?"
Crosby still is managed.
You should have like a list of who people have called you.
Yeah,
that could make a fun little video, I think. All right. Well, anything else you guys want to share about before we wrap up today? I don't see any other questions coming in.
No.
John, you still do a live stream every night?
I do a live stream almost every night on YouTube. SOE Tactical Gear is the website if you want to see what we really do. On my YouTube video, I have videos. I don't know. We put 3 to 5 videos up every day. There's over 3,500 videos. Sometimes it's homestead stuff. Sometimes it's urban exploration stuff. Sometimes it's motivational videos. My content on Instagram is a little bit different. That's usually at 4:30 in the morning. If you see somebody comment 99% of the time on any of my social media or YouTube, it's me actually commenting. And I'm easy to find. If you want to discuss or have a conversation, 9 o'clock YouTube every night, we talk about whatever you type out. That leads the conversation.
Awesome. Guys, I've got a podcast.
Go ahead.
Jeff, you want to say something?
You don't have nothing.
I don't have no social media presence except for SOE.com.
SOETacticalgear.com.
That's it. Yeah.
I do a podcast 5 days a week, livingfreeintennessee.com, as well as live streams and that sort of thing. I actually have a special pantry webinar coming up this Saturday. It's 11 to 3, so about 4 hours long. And Survival Punk is coming on to talk about small storage solutions. But the concept behind the webinar is how to develop your pantry system so that you have a systems approach to store what you use and use what you store, rather than just a bunch of pictures of pantry porn storage, which we all do like. It's kind of like kitten videos, right? Like all the creative solutions people have for pantry stuff. I love it too. That's not what this is about. This is about creating a system that works for you so that you have that food, that savings account of food stored So when things get weird, you've got something to go to, and you're not wasting time going to the grocery store for that one thing you forgot because it's already there. That's over at livingfreeintennessee.com/pantry if you're interested in that.
Real quick,
All
Rock Lick Ranch. I don't know where you are, so that might depend on what you have, but I have everything here. And I don't have a barn. I don't have enclosures for them. My birds go out in the snow every day. We see 0-degree temperature sometimes. Usually we're about 20s, snow and ice on the ground. And my birds always make it through we always lose one, maybe two, but I mean, I have 300. So
that doesn't necessarily mean.
Yeah, and it's not, it's just because that was the weak one that needed to die.
Yeah.
See what people have in your area and buy the paint job that you like. Do you want a brown egg or do you want a white egg? That'll give you a different kind of bird. Do you want a meat bird or do you want an egg bird? Dual purpose usually means they're not the best at one or the other, but they're still like, I have barred rocks. I think they're awesome looking birds. I have Brahmas. I think they're great looking birds. There's other stuff that will produce more eggs and there's other stuff that will give you more meat. Just talk to people local and see. Life Done Free, tag, what's up, buddy? I see you're here. But that's it, Rocklick. But there's a million people on this chat that can give you chicken information for sure.
And if you get multiple breeds, you'll figure out what works best in your area. Like you can get a set of 25 birds from a hatchery, 25 different breeds if you're going egg birds. And you'll know. I like Americana here because they stay alive and I free range. They're apparently really wary of raccoons and whatnot because those always, I have one left right now because I've been closing out chickens on my property. We're moving strictly to ducks, and she's been around for 6 years now. And up until there was one, there were two, and they were both that breed. So that breed does well on my property for whatever reason.
That's awesome. So, right on.
Anyway. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week with another live stream.
All right.